Welcome to Parenting Different, a place where real adoption stories come to life. My name is Anna Bernacki, and this is the Parenting Different podcast. Hi, and welcome to the Parenting Different podcast. My name is Anna Bernacki, and today I have Alice with us. I am so excited you're here with us today, sharing your story of how you ended up in the adoption world. Introduce yourself, talk a little bit about how you got here, because I think for you it's both personal and professional, and I just love your story. So share a little bit about it
Yeah.
with us.
Well, thank you. And it's really exciting to be here. And when I met you, I felt like I had met just someone that I could talk to forever. So I really
Aw.
appreciate being on this. And I feel honored too. I just listened to a couple episodes and I feel like I'm in really good company. So thank you for having me. And yeah, my name is Alice Refauvelet. I am an adoptive mom to an almost 5-year-old. She is Black. I'm a transracial adoptive mom. And we arrived at adoption through infertility, really. And then we did it like our journey was just so wild because when we were looking to have children, we were just expecting things to work out. And then they didn't. And we had this like really wild fertility journey where I think that's a whole other episode, probably.
Probably. Maybe we
Uh,
need to do a part two.
I
We're
was
already
going to
getting to
say,
a part two.
yeah, because adoption after infertility is a whole thing
It
in and of
really
itself.
is. Yes.
Yeah. And then we sort of arrived at adoption because it was our next best option. And then discovered all the sort of nuances and different experiences we had when we were looking for an adoption agency that felt really right for us. And then fast forward 4 years later, I ended up creating a program in conjunction with my daughter's adoption agency called Just Family, which is centered around the hidden harms and all the paths to parenthood and family building in general. And so what I do on a professional basis is I help families figure out ways to build their family in the most ethical way possible. Like, and for everyone involved, like ethics for yourself, because there are all kinds of things that can happen for adoptive parents, for parents creating their families through fertility journeys and things like that. So we do a lot of coaching. And through that, I mean, myself, like I call myself the cringy white lady because I mean, like I never realized how white I was until I brought a Black person into my home. That was something that I talked to you about the first
Yes.
time we
Yeah, I think
spoke.
we share that experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and
Yeah.
listening to Mary Beth, if you are listening to this and you haven't heard Mary Beth, who is a Black adoptee that Anna interviewed, just it was an amazing episode. So don't listen to what I say, listen to what she says. But I'm happy to share all the cringy white lady things that I've done with my daughter and just all the excitement that I've had in that regard as well.
Yeah. Mary Beth's episode was incredible. I think it was so good to hear from the adoptee perspective and, hearing that. But I think it's important to hear your perspective, because you have had such a life altering experience through it. And rather than stepping back and saying, well, she needs to fit into my family, my daughter needs to fit into our family, you've really taken a hard look at it and said, no, no, I need to reevaluate everything that I have ever thought. Tell me a little bit about that journey for you. Kind of, when did you have that realization of, whoa, this is different than I expected it to be, and I need to be the one to make the change and create a culture for her that she can grow up in within her own culture.
Yeah. And it's a moving target, by the way. So I think parenthood in
Sure.
and of itself is a bit, and April, I think, talked about this on as like another, she was like a TBRA expert that you interviewed. I love your
Mhm.
podcast, by the way. And so kind of talked about surrounding yourself in communities with people that really get it. And so parenting in and of itself is the most challenging thing I've ever done, ever. And I think most parents will say that. But then when you're parenting an adopted child, there's an entire layer of complexity that no one really understands unless it's somebody who is in your shoes or has had a deep experience in the adoptive or adoptee
Absolutely.
community.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I don't know if there was like a special or like a specific moment, but it was just, I mean, literally, it was like as soon as we brought our daughter home and just like looking at our neighborhood and looking at her daycare when we took her to daycare and looking and assessing like the people that we surrounded ourselves with, our community and things like that. I mean, I went like all in. This was also, she was born in 2020. So a lot had happened that year with the, resurgence of the civil rights movement, George Floyd, all of that type of stuff. And so it was kind of like, for me, I'm obviously not grateful that any of that happened, but I am grateful for the fact that all of these things were immediately readily available for me to consume and read and help me kind of look at my own white privilege. And I think also oftentimes adoptive parents, at least myself, I put myself in this like perfectionist category, which is, if you research it, is kind of like a tenet of white supremacy in and of itself. But then I try to be like, okay, how can I be the perfect white mom? Or how can I be this perfect person raising somebody who doesn't look like me? And like, first of all, that's never going to happen. And so striving for something that is not possible because we
Right?
can't even be a perfect parent. Um, there's no such thing as perfection in dealing with people. But I just think for me, the realization was when we were looking at our community and we were looking to relocate anyway. And so I think I shared this with you. We
Yes.
decided during the pandemic to relocate. And of course, we were living in California at the time. A lot of people relocate to the Las Vegas area from California because of the proximity. You can drive home or drive back to your peeps in LA or whatever it is. And so we relocated. And of course, what do you do when you're relocating? You're like, okay, I need to find good schools and good this and good that. And we ended up basically recreating our entire same community here in Henderson, Nevada. And I am like, okay, so this is just one of the things, is that you have to really look at your patterns and look at things that you do that are recreating or creating this experience for your child. And so that was such an eye-opening experience. I mean, I can't, I mean, it was just one of those moments where you're like, one of the reasons why we wanted to relocate was to provide a more diverse environment and an environment where we found people that represented her and things like that. And it's just laughable really that we did it. And so now we're actually reconsidering again. We're, because of my job is in Columbus, so we're considering relocating one more time. But while we're here in Vegas, in the Vegas area, for as long as we're going to be here, we're absolutely being more strategic with regard to like community events,
Mhm.
um, getting her into like gymnastics or whatever it is that she really, really enjoys, that also have more diversity than her little school that we walk to on a daily basis. But yeah,
Yeah.
humbling experience.
Yes. And I think we we share that same mindset. We moved just across town to the other side of town thinking, and yes, technically it's more diverse, but it still is so white. Like they're so much the minority. And it's sad that we it's just sad that our country is still so divided that we can't
Mhm.
just move anywhere and have that diversity, that there are such uniquely different neighborhoods. Then I mean, it's just a reality of the country we live in, unfortunately, that neighborhoods are different and you have to be so incredibly intentional to move into a place where your kids will be the majority and then you become the minority. And it's hard. It is so much harder than I think. It's easy to say just move, and it's not that simple. It is hard to be so intentional about that. But through that process, I guess talk to me a little bit about how you have those conversations with your daughter. She's young, right?
Mhm.
She's growing up, she's starting to see some of those differences. She's starting to, 'cause I have a 5-year-old too, so I know what those questions are like. Starting to kind of see, okay, my hair is different, my skin looks different. How are those conversations in your home and how are you developing those conversations? Because I think that's so important. We know it's important to talk about, but sometimes to hear and get the idea of like, okay, this is how I need to have these conversations. This is how I bring it up with my child. I think it's so good for other parents to hear.
Yeah. And again, it's kind of it's emergent. She is almost 5. We have books. Like I remember immediately, I have friends, and like all my friends were sending me these adoption books, and mommy and me don't match, and all these things. I was like so excited to like have all these tools because I'm going to do things the right way. And at the beginning, she just didn't like those books. Like she really gravitated
Yeah.
towards like silly, like I don't know, like poop books and whatever, and like really does not care about that type of stuff. And so now it's just more literally like sort of blunt conversations. Like she'll be like, mommy, am I black? And I'm like, yes, you are black. Yep. And I'm white. And Papa is black, Mama is white. Like those are our bio fam that we just view as our extended family. And we talk about other people in our communities and things like that. And we recently took her to a doctor. It's kind of funny. We took her to a doctor who was black, and then we saw a white doctor, and she was like, "Are we going to see that black doctor again?" I was like, "No, we are going to see another doctor, and he's white." But she's like, "But it's going to be a boy." I'm like, "Yeah, it's going to be a boy." So we're just really talking about sort of naming different things and naming hair and naming colors and things like that. And you know, her hair has always been something that has been a really big deal in her house because she's mixed race actually, and so she has this like beautiful like soft coily curls, but they can get very tangly, and so hair has been something that's been a really big deal for quite some time. And sometimes we cut it, sometimes we don't cut it. We take her to the hairdresser, and sometimes she wants the hairdresser to do her hair, and sometimes she doesn't, so then I get my hair done that day. But we just talking about things, naming things, and kind of like normalizing those things. We have not tackled, other things like feeling different or feeling like we don't fit in yet. That is something that I will be leaning very heavily on your community for, very likely, when stuff like that comes up. But for now, we have some really cool, like we have a couple people at our school. We actually go to a church school, which is very nice. And there are a couple adopted children there.
Oh,
One of the administrators has 2 adopted kids, both transracial. And so that's been very helpful to start naming adoption, what that looks like you grew in Mama Sam's belly and all the things. So yeah, it's a very interesting time because her comprehension, just her overall development of language and understanding is like it's like a hockey stick. It'll be like,
yeah.
we've been a certain way for a long time, and all of a sudden it's like a full blown, fully realized sentence of like really large words comes out, and I'm just like, you are so amazing. Uh, yeah, we're just trying to meet her needs and her growth at the pace that she's on. And really just make everything okay to talk about creating that environment. And TBRI, I'll say also, if you haven't watched the April episode, I am a huge advocate of TBRI. And one thing that I think I talked to a lot of families about, and one thing that I really didn't know about either, is that like every adoption begins with a trauma. And sometimes even birth is inherently a traumatic experience. So if you're parenting biological children, um, if you had a hard pregnancy or whatever, those children can have trauma like associated like in their bodies. And so trust-based relational intervention therapy. I'm a certified caregiver. There's a wonderful program here in Nevada that allowed us to become certified caregivers for free. It's
That's
incredible.
amazing.
Yeah, raisethefuture.org. What's up? Love you guys. So I became certified in TBRI, and it completely changed our relationship where just very much a different conversation, and really like focusing on you talked a lot about kind of or maybe it was April, I'm not sure, but just TBRI inherently can come off as being a little bit permissive, but it really focuses on building trust and maintaining the connection with your child. And that's just kind of like how I vibe to begin with. And so everything about that has been, you know, nothing is ever wrong. Like there are certain things that might be unsafe behaviors or things that kind of like there's a boundary around, but you're not wrong for having those feelings or doing those things or asking those questions. And so that has been really helpful to me when like a lot of the modeling for parenting that I've had, like in my friends, because I'm older. And so a lot of my friends have children that are older than my daughter, and I've watched them raise their kids. So I'm like, oh, I want to be just like, bestie over here. And like, that just doesn't seem to work as well. And so just creating that open environment where everything is met with sort of love and then factual information whenever we can provide it.
Well, and I think
Yeah.
that's something so important too. And I was afraid of bringing up race or bringing up, and like, we don't want to say the right thing. And I think that goes back to that white woman, wanting to be that perfectionism, wanting to do it right. And maybe if we just ignore it, then but that's so wrong. And I've learned that the hard way with my older girls is really like, I have to hit it head on and I need to talk about it very directly. And now, like, some people have even called us out and been like, whoa, that's like a really racist conversation. I'm like, no, this is a normal conversation that we're having in our home because we're not naive. We
Hmm.
know we are different. We know that we look different. And it's foolish to pretend otherwise.
Hmm.
And so we are acknowledging these things. And yes, does my 17-year-old look at me sometimes and be like, "Ugh, you're so white?" And then we laugh, like, yes, like, sorry, I am, you're right. And she'll just call me out on it. And people will be shocked. And I realize, like, that was me. That used to be me that would be shocked at these conversations that we're having. But this is what's healthy. We have to take these conversations and go head on with them, or we're sweeping it under the rug, we're minimizing it, we're saying it's not safe to talk about. We're and it's just so important. And I think too, as like, I'm an adoptee as well, and so I was not transracially adopted, but I knew I was different. And I knew it didn't have to be spoken. I knew I was different. I knew I didn't belong, even though I looked very much like my adoptive mom. I just knew that I didn't belong because my personality was so different. So if I felt like that just with a different personality, how much do they feel like that looking completely different than us? And I think it's so important to just don't, yes, there's nuance. Yes, you want to be cautious of their feelings in these conversations, but not to the point of not having them.
Yeah.
Have them. I think it's better to have an honest, messy conversation than to not have it at all.
I fully agree. And my hunch is that the people that are criticizing or like, shocked by the conversations that you're having are probably very similar skin tone to you and me.
Well, yes.
I find that people that again finding a community has been life affirming, and like I can't even tell you, like being able to have conversations with people at Just Choice where I work and things like that around how to have conversations with an adoptee or how to parent an adoptee, or the inadequacies that you might feel as an adoptive parent, because you have like you wear so many hats. You have a responsibility to maintaining relationships with birth family and first families and things like that, and then there's this guilt about like, was I the right family to be chosen, and all of these additional layers. And then also like knowing that your child came into this world in a different way and having like a maybe like a deeper tenderness for your child layered
Yeah.
in with that good old white perfectionism is a very, very challenging place to be for adoptive parents. And finding people like I can have I joke where I have one of my closest friends in the world. She's three children, amazing mom, and all the things. And she will literally say the same words out of her mouth that someone else would tell me. But if I hear it from somebody who is from the adoption constellation, I can hear it, I can implement it, and like I will do it. But I'm like, I'm so sorry, but I'm going to need to hear that from someone else. So it's just funny anyway. But finding
But I
people
think
that are in your circle, yeah,
yeah,
that
there
like
are
get
so
it.
many nuances and there are so many things that are different. Like when I hear, "Oh, well, that's a typical teenager." No, you don't understand. This is not a typical teenager. Or, "Oh, well, typical toddler. Oh, that's what 5-year-olds will do. Oh, it's not. Like, I know that this is different, and I don't know how to put that into words and explain that it's different, but then you meet somebody else who's also going through the same thing, and it's like, "Oh, yeah, that's right. You just get it." Like, there's just
Yeah.
something to it you just get, and that community is so important and life-giving and just affirming, "Okay, I'm not completely failing. These are the things I need to work on, but I'm not completely failing. I'm on the right track." It's hard. It's
Yeah.
really hard. And I want to do right by these kids. And I've had the conversation with my oldest, like, look, I said, does it ever make you feel less black because you are in a white family? And she was like, yeah, I feel like I have to hide my blackness here. And then she goes to school and she's like, as soon as they find out that I have white parents, then somehow I'm not as black to my black friends. And like that breaks my heart, but there's literally nothing I can do about it. And that I think is one of those things within this world, and that again, that perfectionism, we want to make it all right and we want to make it perfect. Sometimes we have to sit in the uncomfortability of like, look, I am white and I am so sorry that you feel like you can't be yourself here. And I'm also really sorry that you're where you should be able to be yourself as soon as they find out you have white parents, that
Hmm.
they don't accept you. Like, that's awful, and I'm really, really sorry. And so we even those conversations, we have those conversations, and they're hurtful, like, to me, but it's not about me. It's about the kids. And I've said, I was like, man, if I could snap my fingers and change my skin color so that we could all like for you to have a better life, I would. But for whatever reason, this is the path we're on and we're doing the best we can. And it is hard. And I think hearing my teenagers say that just reaffirms the importance of those. I got her when she was much older, and I was naive. So she's older, I'm naive, like poor thing. I'm just starting to figure this out in the last couple of years. And she's going to be 18 this month. So I'm like, sorry. But at least with my younger kids, like I can do better for them. And I
Hmm.
can try and lay the foundation so that, yeah, some of these things are going to be inevitable, but by being educated and putting myself in these spaces and surrounding myself with this community, hopefully they can have it easier than my older ones even did.
Hmm. Yeah. And I mean, if you had talked to me last year, I feel like I would have had everything figured out. Every year as a parent, every year working in this industry, every year having really nuanced conversations with, people that are in the adoption process or, on the other side of it, I learned so much that I have a lot to learn. I guess it reaffirms that I have a lot to learn. And so for me, someone on my team that I work with is very wise. They happen to be a birth mom. And one of the first things they ever said to me that stuck with me and just like somehow allowed my nervous system to relax a little bit when it comes to my whiteness is like every single person on this earth will do harm. We are all capable of harm and we will do harm. And once you are okay with knowing that, like, your existence and your interaction with other people, you're inherently going to cause harm. It's your ability to stay open, to stay as aware as possible. And then when somebody says, you've caused me harm, you're like, oh my gosh, tell me more. How did I do that? What did I do? And so my whiteness and your whiteness causes people harm. You were talking about, I just remember this, you were talking about on your interview with Mary Beth about taking her to the beauty salon or and where you're the only white person there. And now all of a sudden your mere existence inside of their sacred space can put everybody on edge. And like that is number one, it's really crappy for you being the person that like you don't want to cause harm, but like
No.
being able to acknowledge that and know that there's nothing else you can do. This is the best that you're doing and not let that crush you and become like I could just, kind of melt into my puddle of inadequacies and all the things as like, all my shortcomings as a human and as a parent, because as any parent, all of your buttons, all of your um, foibles and behaviors and all the things are just going to be magnified. And so, yeah, have some type of practice where you're able to be okay with imperfection. And then just understand that if somebody is your child, whoever it is, somebody that's important to you, or even has the bravery to tell you that you have caused them harm, be willing to look at that. I'm
Yes.
not saying that it is right or wrong or whatever, or like that person is correct, but being able to be open to exploring how you can repair relationships, how you can acknowledge how you've caused harm. Like, that's the best that I can do right now. And when I talk to you in 6 months, I'll have a completely different story. A new awareness or something. But
Yeah.
when we know better, we do better.
Exactly. That is
Yeah.
exactly it. And I think that's why as adoptive parents, we have to continue to seek that information out. We
Yeah.
cannot get complacent ever. One, each child is unique and different and what works, and every stage as they develop, they are going to change. We are going to change. So we have to be continually seeking out that information. And I think one thing that April said, which I thought was so funny and so true, is what worked and was tried and true for her biological kids did not work at all for her adopted kids. And I think that can even be not biological and adopted, but that can even go for one biological to the next or one adopted to the next. Like every child is so unique. So we have to be continually seeking out more information so that, like you said, when we know better, we do better.
Yeah, you said something. You said something about normalizing. Like, adoptive parents are just regular people in most cases. Like, there are
Yeah.
some really amazing people out there. I think, especially that work with foster kids that are super experienced and they have all the letters at the end of their name and they've taken every parenting certification or whatever. But most adoptive parents are just people that were, really excited to build their family, and then they built their family in this way, and then we're out here just trying to do the best for our kids, because I think almost every parent is always going to do that. And so, yeah, it's they don't come with a handbook. No path to
Nope.
parenthood does. Yeah.
Yeah. No. And I wanted to circle back to what you said earlier when you were talking about what you do at Just Choice, is talking about or maybe it was just family. You'll have to correct me there, but the different ways that family planning can, all the different harms that can
All
come
the
with
different,
each
yeah.
one. And I think that's so important because that is not talked about. I mean, how many times were we told when we're going through infertility, just adopt, just do IVF, just do everybody's got like their just do this,
Yeah.
and it's the magic solution.
Yeah.
And it's not like that. And so talk a little bit about that and your journey through that and then like how you've implemented that, um,
Yeah.
what you've learned through your work in your profession.
Yeah, no problem. Well, so Just Family is my program under the Just Choice umbrella. So Just Choice,
Okay.
yeah, Just Choice is
I was
our
a little
sort of
confused on that.
parent
So
company. Yeah. So we're a family of companies. It's Just Choice, Just Family. And then now we are launching the Just Center for Reproductive Health, which is,
okay. That's great you told me
yeah,
about that.
yep,
Yeah,
very
very cool.
exciting. But my program is Just Family. And so it's really about justice and family building. And my journey, so I think a lot of people that either experience infertility or they're struggling to create a family, whether it's because they don't have all the parts, because they're a member of the LGBTQ plus community, or they're a single person trying to have a baby, or whatever that is. You sort of start out and you're like, oh, I'm just going to go get all this stuff. And like, this doctor is going to have all the answers and it's very clear cut. But fertility is inherently not clear cut. And there is a lot of capitalism involved. Is no regulation on what fertility clinics can charge. A lot of times you don't even know like what's the difference between a fertility clinic and your normal like OBGYN. A lot of times people don't even understand what it takes to make a baby. Like, I know that sounds crazy, but like, I understood the mechanics of it, but I didn't understand what was actually happening. Like, okay, like what do the eggs do? How does that work? Embryos in different stages. Like, you just don't know any of these things. So you sort of go into this education woefully unprepared. And then a lot of times, especially if you have a uterus and ovaries, like you have a ticking time clock. And so a lot of these decisions about whether to move forward in this very expensive juncture, like I myself was charged $30,000 at one clinic for the same thing that another clinic down the street was charging $7,500 for. And so you just don't know. And so for me, I do not think reproductive endocrinologists, who are the fertility doctors, are out here, doing anything intentionally harmful. But being, as a person who experienced harm from feeling pressured, from not knowing, not being educated, not having a mentor to say, make sure you meet with at least three fertility doctors in your area before you commit to one, like you can always take 24 hours to make a decision or whatever it is. Like, there was a lot of harm that happened. And then there's a lot of grief. And so what ended up happening is that we weren't able to use my genetics. And so then there was grief on top of it. And my community saying, why don't you just adopt? Adoption is beautiful. All these narratives that I do not believe adoption is inherently beautiful. That is a narrative that is sort of an American lie. Adoption always starts with harm and injustice towards pregnant people, which is a whole other conversation. Basically, my program, we tell you all the things. So yes, I'll tell you how IVF works or how IUI works, all these different terms for creating a baby through medically assisted family building. But I'm also going to tell you how you can prepare yourself from the things you may experience. Not everyone experiences harm building their family that way, but this is my experience, and this is the experience that, just like you and I have kind of a shared understanding of adoption, the same thing happens with people that have experienced fertility clinics and things like that. There's sort of this like shared look of like, oh, yep, been there. And there's kind of an understanding and a knowing of things like that. So we talk a lot about that. And then we also talk about adoption through foster and through private infant adoption. And we tell you all the things, we tell you the steps to get there. And we also talk about, why you want to work with an agency that really focuses on all options for pregnant people, and certain like things to read about how adoption in America really has been shaped over the years, and injustices that are put on pregnant people, and why reproductive justice is involved, and things like that, and stuff that I really had no idea about. I mean, I was just trying to have a family, try to do the American thing and like all the stuff. And here I am like 6 years later learning about anyway, really interesting pieces of American history that I had no idea about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think most people don't know. I think most people look at it and go into these things with the best intentions and have no idea all that is in the background of it. So I think that is so important. I mean, yeah, as I was going through infertility and all of that, man, those clinics are stressful. Like, you don't, they just tell you, here, this is what we're going to do. Then, wait a minute. Do I
And
get
if
a
you
say
don't,
in this? It's my
and if you
body,
don't
but
get your
okay.
shot at exactly 9 p.m., everything's going to be terrible. And like, we're going to have to wait till next. I mean, it's just like all this. I
Right.
have to do my own shots. I'm not a nurse.
Right, and you just get thrown into it, and the assumption, it's never even a conversation of, "Is this the path you want to go?" It's like, "Well, you're here, so we're gonna do this, 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 and this," and you're kinda sitting there going, "Wait, what just happened in that appointment?"
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's how I felt. I walked out and, like, we didn't even get that far in the process. We did a couple, um, we did all the blood work and the initial testing, and then we did a couple rounds, and I was like, I'm out, because I felt
Mm-hmm.
so out of control. And me and side effects, that's a whole other conversation. It
Hormones.
was
Yeah.
terrible.
And then
It
you're
was
being asked to
terrible.
make these like wild decisions while you're on more hormones than you've ever been. I mean, it's
Right.
very, very
Right. It just,
interesting.
the
Anyway.
whole experience, I just felt like I had no say. Like, everybody's making choices for me. Take this, do this shot, do this. And it's like, nobody ever asked me, how do you feel about this?
Mm-hmm.
How are you feeling in this process? And so we ended up at one point just sat there and we're like, I just stopped. I was like, I'm out. I'm done. And I didn't have another plan, and I didn't know where I was going to go, but I knew I couldn't do that anymore. And so it was just like we had to halt everything and stop and process and think through and figure out what our next steps were. And for us, we were like, "Oh, let's foster while we're waiting." Little did we know how that was gonna go. But we did not assume we were gonna be adopting our first placements. But it was so I just felt so out of control. And
Yeah.
what I would have given to have somebody take me through step by step and say, "No, this is what we're going to do." And or this is what this involves and this is what, giving me that autonomy rather
Hmm.
than just walking in. You always and I do think that the doctors have your best interest in mind. You're there because you want a child. So they're like, "Well, this is the fastest way to do that." But there are different ways to do it. And sometimes we need a minute and
For
we need
sure.
to be able to have a say in what we're doing. So that is so important. And
Hmm.
how did you I know you adopted through this agency. How did you connect to this agency? Because you're in California, they're
Agencies
in
in Columbus.
Ohio.
Yeah.
Yeah, so how did you connect with this and really, because it sounds like such a unique agency that you have.
Very unique agency, and I could not be more grateful for my downstairs neighbor. So we were, we had made this decision to adopt, and yes, and all of our fertility woes were behind us, and we're gonna go save a baby. And so we started, but we were broke. Like, candidly, like, IVF is really expensive. We did multiple rounds, and we adopted embryos. We had all kinds of stuff regarding the IVF journey. And so I was like, I am going to find the least expensive, but most ethical, because I'm sure ethics are going to come into play here with my like limited knowledge of adoption, agency. And so I found this agency, and they had very good marketing. They seemed to be a very reasonable price and all the things, and they sent us this glossy brochure, and I was about to send them off our check. And I went downstairs to tell my downstairs neighbor. She used to teach law at Pepperdine and was a family lawyer for quite some time. And she used to represent a lot of birth moms in adoptions.
Oh, okay.
And I did not know this, but she kind of like alluded to that previously. And I was like, Roseanne, I figured it out. This is the agency we're going to go with. And she was like, well, what do they say about the birth moms? And I was like, well, the conversation was mostly about us and like wait times, and eh, they didn't really say anything. So she was like, you might want to just research a couple other adoption agencies and maybe find one that puts a little more focus on birth moms, because they are famously underrepresented in the adoption conversation. And it was like a, I mean, something changed, something in me changed in that conversation. And so then I was like, oh my God, slow down. So we started asking friends, like, asking people who we knew that were adopted or who that had adopted, if they had any recommendations. So, an acquaintance recommended Just Choice, formerly Choice Network in Ohio. And our conversation with Molly, who's the founder of the company, in 2019 was just so different. She literally was like, I think we probably talked to her for 30 minutes, so it wasn't that long. Like, my discovery calls with families are far longer. And she was just like, here's the deal. I love you. You're going to be, if you want to move forward with Just Choice, like, you're going to be a great client. But my real client are the moms. And she really talked to us about the fact that, only 1% of pregnant people ever choose to place their child for adoption or create an adoption plan. And that most of those decisions come down to a socioeconomic inequity, usually a financial inequity. And then she talks about the fact that adoption is very expensive, yet there's this like, disparity when it comes to adoptions. It's a very nuanced thing. And the one thing that she really focuses on is having an open adoption. And so she really talked a lot about that and what that means, and maintaining, relationships and all these things. And as somebody who was really looking to build their family, like, and I say this, like, I call myself like this, like, cringy white lady. For me in that moment, I was sort of my balloon of possibility and hope, and adoption is beautiful, and saving a baby, and all these like things that were going to make me this wonderful person. All of those were sort of like popped, but
Mhm.
also this understanding and hopefulness of like, oh, okay, like, I can actually do this differently. And and just it's literally the epitome of like when we know better, we do better. Like I was kind of like had all this faith in this fantasy that there are all these babies out here needing saved. Like the moms are just giving away babies, and then you think about it now, it is just it's insane that that narrative is able to be painted. It's like embarrassing to look back on that and think that I was somebody that kind of was just bought into that belief just because I didn't know, and that's how adoption is often painted in the media and on
It is, yeah.
entertainment and all these things. Anyway, so that's how I ended up with Just Choice. And because we had an open adoption, I would often ask Molly, hey, how do you approach this situation? Because we've also a very complex, we're all complex people. And so I ask her for advice on like, how do I approach this situation? I want to do it the right way. And so she and I just stayed in contact. And, it's always been her dream to create this all options counseling for families, just like she does for pregnant people. And when the Dobbs decision happened with the fall of Roe, Choice Network morphed into and rebranded themselves as Just Choice, which is a full blown agency that provides mutual aid to pregnant people that need it to prevent adoptions from happening, really, and support pregnant people where they are. So Just Choice is a very unique adoption agency, and that's sort of how Just Family was born. Is just like we do true all options for pregnant people. We also do now true all options for people that are looking to create their family if they need a little help.
I love that. I think that is so beautiful and so needed to be able to have one place where you can go and get the information about everything. Because, yes, we can Google, right? But how many opinions are there? And is it the right information? And yeah, it's overwhelming. And so to have one place that
Yeah.
you can go and get all the pros and cons of everything, and that is huge. Absolutely
Yeah.
incredible. I love the work that you're doing.
Thanks.
As we close here, what would be one piece of advice that you wish somebody had given you as you started your adoption journey? Or even now in parenting now? What is one piece of advice that you had to learn the hard way and you wish somebody had given you?
Mm. For me, it's really just trust your gut. And just because you're an adoptive parent doesn't mean you don't have a maternal or paternal sort of inner guidance system that you can
That
follow.
is so true.
And yeah, I think so many times I second guess myself because of the biology of it all or whatever that is. And I think, following your gut. And I think there are people that tend to overcompensate. I would put myself, maybe yourself, in the perfectionist overcompensation category. And then there are people that are sort of in the ignore category because it might be feel too big. And if you're ignoring something, trust your gut. Maybe just suss it out. It's probably not as bad as you think it is. And if you're overcompensating, like just follow your instinct. You're going to mess your kids up, whether you're a bio parent, adoptive parent, foster parent, host parent, auntie parent, like whatever it is. You are going to be messing your kids up, and you're going to be doing your best, and you're going to learn no matter what. So just don't be so hard on yourself and trust yourself.
That is so true. So wise. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm
6 months
so
from
glad
now.
you joined me today, and I loved our conversation. We could probably do a part 2, 3, 4, of all of the different
And
things.
I,
I
I
love
am
it.
I'm
Let's
picking
do
up everything you put down, Miss Anna, and I so appreciate you for having me.